Well, if you've been a fan of Netflix and you have a subscription, then I'm sure you've seen a lot of DC movies popping up on the streaming service recently. Specifically, a lot of the or newer, relatively speaking, DCEU films, including Black Adam, Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, Man of Steel, Wonder Woman. Uh, so it looks like HBO slash Warner Brothers has they've been striking deals with Netflix to bring a lot of their catalog over, including shows like I think Game of Thrones even like it's so we're gonna see a lot of their catalog programming coming over to Netflix. We don't know how long this deal is going to last for, how long these shows and movies are going to be available for on Netflix. I'm sure for HBO and Warner Brothers, this makes all the sense in the world. You keep everything exclusive to Max, and you're really only making money when people subscribe to your streaming service, or you license them to Netflix, and Netflix pays you millions of dollars to put all this content on their streaming service. Not to mention, it becomes like a way to market your content because then you can say, hey, you like these movies and TV shows? Come over to Max. We've got so much more. And speaking of which, there were a couple of things that they don't have included in this deal apparently. That includes like Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition, or Suicide Squad's Ultimate Edition, or the director's cut, like which is not the air cut, but like there was a cut that they released after with more footage that the theatrical version of the Will Smith, Margot Robbie Suicide Squad didn't have. And of course, the big one that's missing is Zack Snyder's Justice League, which was a Max original, still is, and it still is exclusive to Max. So if you want to watch Justice League, the one on Netflix is the one with with the whole Henry Cavill mustache that is not so invisible, or is invisible, but what's visible is not so pleasing. But like what we uh, won't see is a lot of those exclusive, those extra special editions. Those are still only on Max. But that led to a lot of fans just bringing up, a lot of Snyder fans bringing up the topic again of sell the Snyderverse, sell the DCEU to Netflix. Let them finish the story. Because Zack Snyder's already over there. He's working on Rebel Moon. Why not let him, do the work and finish off his vision for the Justice League, that the one at least involving Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, and the bunch. But John, is that even possible? Like, can Netflix even do that? Like, would Warner Brothers even be remotely interested? Or if it were possible, like how much money would Netflix have to table to even get Warner Brothers to pay attention to the idea of maybe giving them a shot at one of their most coveted IP, that is DC?
Um, in terms of the Snyderverse, I think the best way I can describe where it is now is to quote a Snyder film. It's dead. Consider this mercy. I'm sorry, I hate to say that,
Oh
but
my
like
God.
I know a lot of people love it and a lot of people are fans of it and want to see it the rest of his vision. And as someone who, wants to be a writer of films, like I want to be a screenwriter, but and I always try to champion the writer's vision and anybody's vision, no matter how much I disagree with it and no matter how much I dislike it. Um, I want that would be interesting to see, but I don't think that would ever happen. I don't think Netflix is interested in that sort of thing. I don't think WB is interested in that sort of thing. I don't even think Zack Snyder is interested in that sort of thing. Sure, he has said in the past, like, oh yeah, I'd be open to it, but I feel like I feel like he just wants to do his own thing now. He wants to do his Star Wars movies that aren't Star Wars, and he wants to do any other, adaptations in the future that he wants to do. So, I think he's just happier doing with whatever he's doing now. I don't think he wants to think about DC for a while. Maybe in the super duper duper future, once everything is said and done, like maybe like 20 years from now, and he's like, you know what, maybe I'll do a DC film. But like outside of that, I don't think any of the parties would be interested. I think it's just hope from fans that like who are just begging that like we just want to see this. But it's unfortunate that I don't think it's happened. But I also did say that the Snyder cut would never happen, and look how wrong I was in that. So, is there the slim chance? Of course, there's always the slim chance for everything. And with that, I think if we're talking about the slimmest of chances happening and we're going through that, like, oh, it actually did happen, I think it could work. And I think just having Justice League 2 and 3, finishing that, whether that be live action or animated, depending on people, getting older and older, even though Henry Cavill, he's 40 now, he still looks like, you know, he's in his 20s. So it's fine. I think he can do that. Um, so, I think,
I
I
mean,
think he can
he could
make it
probably
work.
even pull off it being 30s. Like,
Yeah,
I could.
he's fine. It's like I think the if that slim chance of the Snyderverse being sold would happen, I think they could make it work. I think Netflix would be like, okay, cool. We'll buy it. Oh, awesome. And then Zack Snyder would be like, okay, I have creative control because Netflix clearly lets me have creative control, like with Army of the Dead and this. He was able to do what he wanted with Rebel Moon in terms of what I was talking about with this. And I think people would be happy. Warner Brothers doesn't have to worry about it. Netflix, he's pumping out more original content, original, but technically original. And then Zack Snyder gets creative freedom. It would work, but it's like it would be like a 0.0001% chance of happening. There's a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance? There's a chance. But very, very, very slim chance. And I think Warner Brothers just wants to focus on Gunn and Safran's vision. Netflix wants to focus on just having the licensing to post these movies so that they get some more money for their streaming service. And Zack Snyder just wants to work on Diet Star Wars. So I think that's what everyone is
I
dealing with now.
feel like you're
So
taking some shots there. It's Star Wars.
honestly, in this case, Diet Star Wars is probably going to be better than regular Star Wars. So you know what? Is it? You know what? I was a man that preferred Diet Coke to regular Coke. So you know what? Not totally not totally a total shot. It's I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with Zack Snyder and his movies. So there is that. We're not going to get into that because then we're going to be here for an hour. So, but in terms of Rebel Moon, I am curious about it. It looks intriguing, and as someone who has become disillusioned with Star Wars, I'm open to what Zack Snyder has for his version of Star Wars because it was a Star Wars script that he's like, "Hey, can we do this?" And Disney's like, "No," and he's like, "Okay, I'll just make my own Star Wars with blackjack and hookers. I'll just do it on my
Yeah.
Netflix. Hey, let's do this." And they're like, "Okay."
Yeah. Haven't you ever wanted to see like a rated R version of Star Wars that was
I
more a
mean,
little
come
more
on,
for grown-ups? Yeah,
yeah.
that's the pitch. I mean, look, I honestly I think there's a lot of reasons why, Netflix finishing or taking over the DCEU, finishing the story that Zack Snyder started. There's a lot of reasons why that's not going to happen or it's not possible. One reason you mentioned, like Zack Snyder has moved on. He's sort of like let the man go and do his thing. I think for everything that he went through with Warner Brothers, with multiple regimes and just kind of stifling his creativity or letting him do his thing and then stepping in late and saying, "Oh no, 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 we're gonna change stuff," or like wiping out 30 minutes of a movie that was ready to go into theaters and then he has to make a public statement saying, "No, I made the decision to do that." I think the movie works without it. And then when they put it all back in, you were like, they clearly did this pretty late in the game. Like you could tell because they weren't able to like stitch the other pieces together quite as well without those 30 minutes in there. They cut out Jenna Coleman's entire character, not to mention everything that happened with the Justice League. But the other big reason is just the finances of it all. Like you look at how valuable DC is to Warner Brothers today. Warner Brothers knows they've got a few franchises available to them that can bring them back to their glory days of Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, the Dark Knight trilogy, and what they had going on with DC back in the early 2000s. That's something where they look at it and they say, okay, there's a reason why Warner Brothers is about to work on a new Lord of the Rings movie while Amazon's working on a TV show at the same time. And then there's a reason why they're trying to make the Harry Potter books into a TV series, not to mention potentially doing more movies, whether they're Fantastic Beasts movies or other Harry Potter related movies, maybe that J.K. Rowling writes or whatever. And at the same time, now we have DC Studios. The simple fact that we have a DC Studios means we have got billions of dollars that Warner Brothers is putting up, or potentially saying this is our backing for DC to be basically our leader, being the biggest revenue generator we've got, like Marvel Studios has been for Disney. And when you've got that much invested in that IP, I highly doubt they're going to want to have somebody like Netflix out there creating something that will be in direct contrast, because people will compare. Oh, did you see the new Zack Snyder Justice League 2 come out on Netflix? Isn't it better than Superman Legacy that James Gunn put out recently? Yeah, people are gonna compare. And they don't like it's like it would be something that maybe the old Warner Brothers would do because they were used to kind of like, undercutting themselves. But I don't think David Zaslav and his leadership team, not to mention James Gunn and Peter Safran, especially if you go by what he said, what James Gunn said at the presentation for the new DCU Chapter 1, saying like, the old Warner Brothers were just handing out DCIP willy-nilly to whoever wanted it, and not protecting it and respecting it like the way it should. I think for all of those reasons, like there's just no way. I mean, the only way you might see, this actually become a reality is if Netflix is willing to fork out tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars to Warner Brothers and say, we'll clear your debt, we'll take DC off your hands, and we'll put some extra money on top of that in your coffers. And then we'll put more money in Zack Snyder's coffers to make us all of these movies. I mean, it doesn't make financial sense. And B, I just don't think it's a situation where you can't sell something that the other person is not willing to sell. So I think it would either take an offer like in the hundreds of billions of dollars, or nothing. Like you can't just be Netflix and walk up and say, like what they did with Knives Out, here's $4 billion or whatever, however much they paid Daniel Craig and Rian Johnson to like take over that franchise and say like, hey, make us 3 movies and here you go, rich for the rest of your life and generations ahead. All set for for your kids and grandkids or whatever. I don't think it would take that kind of money. It would take next level kind of money, like because you're buying a big part of Warner Brothers, company as company. And the only way, John, there's a little bit of hope. I want to leave the fans with a little bit of hope. Just maybe a small light at the end of the tunnel if you're a Snyderverse fan. I think the only way we can potentially see Zack Snyder continue and finish his vision, the only way, smallest chance, is if, let's say, the DCU is up and running, but it's a little underwhelming. Maybe like, it's not making as much money as they want it to. And like the pressure is still on for David Zaslav to clear the debt that Warner Brothers has been carrying, for years, but like especially since, Warner Brothers Discovery, the merger happened. They've been doing everything they can, including cancel Batgirl or almost shelving that new Acme versus Coyote movie that John Cena is a part of. Like all of those moves are to save money and to wipe out the debt that they have. I think if that pressure is still on the way it is now in like 5 years time, and the DCU is struggling a little bit, it's not quite gone off to the amazing start let's say the MCU did. And, of course, that's the aim for the DCU. I'm sure James Gunn would love to be making billion-dollar movies 2-3 years into the existence of this new DCU. But if that's not happening, and David Zaslav sees this as an opportunity to potentially, again, like they're making money off licensing all these movies to live on Netflix for a certain period of time. If Netflix says, hey, we'll pay you like a few $1 billion if you let us, like what Netflix did with all those Marvel shows, if you let us make some DC-based IP stuff, and it could live within its own continuity, like the Sandman. And even then, though, I think you wouldn't probably see a live action version. You might see like an animated Justice League 2 and 3, and you get the voices of the original actors, and they come back in and they voice the characters, and it will probably be a very good looking animation. It wouldn't be like the kind of animation that you see direct to DVD DCEU movies. You're probably going to see something that's a step up from that, maybe closer to like what you see with What If on Disney Plus with Marvel. But that's the only way I see this happening, like Netflix being able to produce anything connected to Zack Snyder's version of the DCEU. Outside of that, I think, you're better off looking for fan fiction comics. Like that's probably your best bet at finding a conclusion They or like just go and find the storyboards that Zack Snyder put up a couple of years ago at those exhibits in Texas. Yeah, I think that's probably your best bet. So guys, in the comments, let us know what you think about this. Sell the Snyderverse. This is a movement that's probably never going to go away. But honestly, I don't think the odds of this happening are very high. And the slimmest chances being that maybe we'll get something animated if the DCU is not doing all that well, like say 5-10 years from now. But as far as live action Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck's, Superman and Batman, we're probably not going to ever see that again, outside of maybe some multiverse cameo in the DCU. But let us know in the comments what you think about that, guys. Of course, like and subscribe for more content like this. We're back here each and every day with more DC updates and all things DCU related.